Hey, welcome back. In this video we're going to look at this 1968 Super Reverb. I'll let you hear what it sounds like after I fixed it up and got it in tip-top shape again. It was something I found locally on Craigslist and was able to clean it up. And I shot some footage of that, I think it was about a year and a half ago. It's just been sitting around and I haven't got a chance to finish it. So I thought I'd finally get around to showing you what it was like when I got the amp back. And that'll be sort of a long part of the video. So if you can stick around to the end of that, you'll be able to see all the details of what I found when I got the amp, because I kind of took a chance on it. I didn't know exactly what it was, and it was in kind of rough shape. It needed some work, definitely. So you'll be able to see all the whole process of me kind of taking it apart and seeing what I had to work with. I've always wanted a Super Reverb. I've always been looking for one that has the blackface circuit, and I kept my eye out for a long time and came close to getting one here and there, but I wanted to have something that had a little bit more headroom that I could take on a live gig, that, let's say it's an outside live gig, that would have plenty of power to keep up with the band in that situation if the band volume got loud. I had a 65 Bassman head that was plenty loud, but I had that for years as kind of that sort of amp that would fill that role, but I didn't like that it didn't have reverb. I really enjoy playing with reverb lately, so I kept my eye open and I found this one locally on Craigslist, and I'll get more into that later in the video when I put in the other clips from getting the amp and first taking a look at it. So I'm super happy that I was able to pick up both of these amps. They're both 68s. You can see the one over there, the Deluxe Reverb, and this Super Reverb. I was able to pick those up relatively within a short time span, and it seems like they were made very close to each other, just within a few months probably, or a few weeks from each other. And that's pretty special. That's pretty cool, because they are the very last of the blackface circuit before it switched over. And after CBS bought Fender, the engineers started to change the circuit somewhat. These still have the blackface circuit that sought after from like 64 to 67. That extends into 68 somewhat, into the spring of 68. That's when it started to switch over and make those changes. So if you're lucky enough and you look for it, you'll be able to find some of these early 68 amps that still have the blackface circuit that's untouched, really. The only difference being the faceplate's going to be a little different. It's going to have, the Silverface faceplate, and these 68s, 69s around there, the first early Silverface, have the drip edge around them, and they have a real nice grill cloth that has, well, now it ages to sort of like a greenish and bluish in it. The Deluxe Reverb I have is in great shape. This Super Reverb, you'll see in part of the video here, has a lot of damage on it, but I'm going to keep this one like it is, because it was used on the road a lot, and I'm definitely not going to restore it or anything like that. That's part of the history of this amp. But let me let you hear a little bit more what it sounds like. I'm playing right now this the 59 Dan Electro Silvertone, and I picked this up recently over the past year or two. I'll probably do a separate video just on this guitar and what I did to it, but I want to let you hear what this sounds like. I have all the tone controls on the amp on 5. I have the treble on 5, middle and bass on 5, and the volume's on about just under 4. Reverb is on 4. And I can hear that's a lot more mids coming through when I have that selected on both pickups here with this guitar. So I might want to turn down the bass, but I'm going to keep it on there for now, and just what I'm going to do is turn my tone control all the way up here and see how this sounds. Here it is in a net pickup. Alright, so the next footage you're going to see is me getting the amp, and I'm going to show you the process of me kind of opening it up and seeing what I had to work with, fixing it up, and getting it in the shape it's in now. So here it is, the Black Line 1968 Drip Edge Super Reverb. Just picked it up. It's got the Alnico speakers, Fender label Alnico speakers, no foot switch. You can see here that somebody grounded this off so that the tremolo is actually engaged. These wires aren't original right here. Looks like those were replaced. That's definitely not factory wires right there. That wiring looks original there. We're going to take a look inside and see what we have. Looks like an original GE GZ34. So that's a good sign. If it has the GZ34, that's usually the original blackface circuit. And of course I have Laurel over here doing some work. Yep. You'll hear her banging away and making noise. That's what she likes to do.
It's not working.
When I bought this, I wanted to get a picture of the circuit, but the owner was very uncomfortable with me doing that and said that the only person that had ever really done any work on this or taken it apart was their tech, and that's the only person they felt comfortable doing it. It was like, take it as it is, this is the price. So I went there and played through it. Sounded good. The volume was kind of low though. I was surprised by the volume, but it sounded great. I'm thinking that it needs an upgrade of probably some capacitors and stuff. We'll see. And then we're going to see what's inside here in a second. So I'm going to unplug the speaker here, speaker jack, and we're going to pop this out and see what we have. Here's the stamp right here. So what that's telling me, I believe, is 19th week of 1968. And from what I've read, that's a good thing, because that means that it was before they started to go to a lot of different changes that happened that were for the worse after May of 1968. I'm lucky that this looks like it's all there original, and it does look like the original AB763 circuit. It's very clean. The wiring looks great. I have the Ajax blue capacitors here. I'm very happy to see that. The electrolytic capacitors have been replaced at some point. That's a good thing. This capacitor right here has been replaced at some point. That's good. But again, the lifespan on some of these, they say, is only 10 to 15 years. So I don't know how long ago that was replaced. It has a 3-prong cord. It's grounded. That looks good. I'm just checking for anything that looks burnt. Not seeing anything that looks burnt in there. So let's take a look in here. Now this is where you have to be careful. If you're going to do any work on these, anytime you watch an amp video, you see guys talking about the safety and being careful. This is where it's dangerous underneath here. If these aren't discharged properly, they do have enough voltage stored in them that they could kill you. So be very, very careful. Amazingly, these look like they're in good shape. They don't have any kind of blistering or anything. Normally these will start leaking, and there's going to be some kind of like swelling blisters that pop out of these. I'm not seeing that, so it's pretty amazing that they look like they're in pretty good shape. And all the amps I've worked on, this is one of the first things you want to change. So since the volume is not as loud as it should be, I'm going to order those and switch those out. That's one of the first things I'm going to do. I think that'll fix that volume issue. This should have been changed years ago. The lifespan on those is well past due. I mean, this thing is 50 years old. So, okay, so a couple other things here. The death cap is still there. So I got to take out that. That is not a good thing.
Come on.
So this was, whoever did this work did it years ago. And I actually asked the owner if I could talk to the tech, because the owner didn't want me to open this up. And that made me a little nervous, because I thought, well, maybe they're trying to hide something. And they said the only person would know would be my tech. He says it's the blackface circuit. So I had to kind of take them on their word for it. It turns out, I guess, that this was owned by a woman who played harmonica and some guitar for years. And she had, when I went there, she had this one, and she had a 65 or 66 blackface sitting there that was in pristine condition, but she wanted about twice as much for it. Most techs, I would think, would take that death cap out of there, but they kept this thing really, really original. So I'm going to take that out of there. What I'm also going to do is, for biasing, I'm going to put these 1 ohm resistors from pin 8 to ground. So I can take that ground wire out that's right there, and I can put in the 1 ohm resistor there, and then you measure the voltage drop across that 1 ohm resistor, and that helps you bias it. So let's take a look at this reverb tank, see what that looks like. Well, if it's original, it looks brand new. I don't know much about these reverb tanks, but that looks brand new. It sounded good though when it was working. It sounded good. That looks like it might be replaced. And you have these wires that are replaced. So the RCA plugs need to be. Got to get something that's a little bit nicer because these just don't fit very well into the jacks in the back of the amp. As far as the speaker's condition goes, this one had a big hole in it that had been repaired before. There's a crack. It had been glued several times, and a flap had popped out this way. I went ahead and reinforced it with some paper towel and some glue on both sides, and it seems to be a lot more solid now. That should take care of that crack, hopefully, and that hole. I wanted to show you how much dust had accumulated on these speakers. This one is from the bottom that I just took out. And I'm just using a paintbrush here to get this accumulated dust out. I'm just gently going along the cone and breaking up the dust like this. But otherwise, the cones seem like they're in great shape. They seem nice and solid. They don't seem like they're all rotten and falling apart. It's just that one that had that repair. Okay, so I just finished up the cap job here. Power supply is now ready to go. We're going to see if that affects the volume. If we have a volume increase now that's fixed, replace some resistors here too. So I'm going to put this cover back on and button that up. Alright, so the last thing I did was replace the resistors, the screen grid resistors on both the power tubes. They were out of spec. They were well past their time. And I also replaced on the bias supply over here, replaced that resistor. So should be good to go now. Everything else looks pretty good. There are some things that have drifted. Some resistors have drifted. I want to see how it sounds without doing anything else. And I'm going to get it back, hook it back up here and give it a test. Okay, here's the speaker that was giving me problems with some buzzing, and I couldn't figure out what it was at first. I've just repaired it, and I didn't videotape that part, but I'll just describe what I did. I took the dust cap, I ended up taking the dust cap off. The dust cap, there were some vibrations happening near the dust cap. And I thought it was a loose dust cap, although the dust cap seemed to be pretty tight and held on there with old epoxy. The epoxy was kind of brittle, so I started with an X-Acto knife and I went around and I tried to clean up the brittle parts and get those little pieces of debris. I did it upside down so that the pieces of debris would fall away, and I was worried that some of it went down in the gap in the voice coil there. So what I ended up doing was trying to get that dust cap off, and I was able to just kind of pop it off, and it was so brittle it just kind of broke away and came off. And so what happened was there was little particles, I think, of the old epoxy that had fallen down in there, and that was causing the buzzing. I used some dust remover spray, sprayed it in there to get all the debris out of there. I did it upside down, and I went around that gap with a piece of cardstock and plugged the speaker back in without the dust cap, and the buzzing was gone. So there was definitely some particles in there, and I was able to clean that out, and that saved me from having to get this reconed, because I hated to have it reconed because these cones look like they're just excellent shape. There's not any issue with them being rotten or falling apart or thin or anything like that. They're in really good shape. So what I did then is I mixed up some epoxy and I put the dust cap back on, and there's a little gap around the outside that used to have this black epoxy, and now it's going to have a fresh coat of epoxy there, so we should be good to go. All right, I appreciate you guys who stuck around here till the end. Until next time, take care.